Welcome to this video on turnover. Today, we're going to get into this exploration of the turnover data. So let's see if we can first generate some turnover data with our Copilot. Copilot, generate 3 years, 3 years of turnover count by month for an organization this size, 5,000. Now let's go with 10,000 employees. Well, let's go with 5,000 employees. It says to generate 3 years of turnover count for the age of 5,000, I'll create a sample data set based on typical turnover rates. This average turnover rate, large organizations typically between 10 to 20%. For this example, I'll use 15% annual turnover rate, distributed. So it's giving us an annual turnover and a monthly turnover, generating the data for each month. Okay, it does give you some sources here. Oh, it just gives you the turnover calculation. Let's click on this, see what this gives us. Okay, so when I click on this, it didn't give me any data. It just went to the OneDrive version of the same file. I don't see anything there. It still is loading, but there's nothing that came. Okay, so that's useless. Let's try the ChatGPT. I need example data of company turnover. It should be about 48 months of data. The company grew from 5,000 employees in the first month to about 10,000 employees in the 48th month. I need the end of the month head count. For each of the 48 months, I need the count of turnover that occurred for each month. The turnover should be about turnover rate of about 25% in the first month that gradually increased to 35% in the 48th month. There's also scenario that for summer that occurs where the summer months have higher turnover rate. The first month should be generated. Whoa. It gave us the data. Now let's see if it works. Download the table. Okay, so we take this data that it gave us. ChatGPT gave us this data. And now let's start working on it here. So here's an end of month count and our turnover count. There's a couple of different things that we want to do with turnover. The first thing is we want to be able to have our turnover for that month. So let's return over rate for the month. Turnover rate for the month is going to be your turnover count that month divided by the end of month headcount. All right, so that's how much of your workforce was lost that month. Okay, that's the turnover rate for the month. Now let's zoom in a little bit here and fix this. Now, that monthly turnover rate helps you compare. It doesn't necessarily let you know how does that compare to the year. I mean, you can continue monitoring this. There's a term called annualized. Sometimes we see an annualized turnover rate for the month is basically this number, but he says, hey, what happens if this rate happened for 12 months? What does that look like? If we do that, we see that this gives us that 25% that we called GTOR. Annualized turnover rate for that month is 25%. We can drag that down since they're independent on the rows. And you can see now, whoa, our summer months, it's just like we instructed ChatGPT, our summer months are higher than our other months. Interesting. Well, now that we have this, we can start plotting some of these out. Let's grab both of these and let's insert a chart. Okay. So, something to point out here is that you see a little bump here. You see really small bumps. If I zoom in all the way, you can maybe start to see some little bumps up here. Well, because we're multiplying by 12, we're just amplifying the effect of what was happening. The reason why the annualized is important is because it allows you to say, if this month happened all year, what would that rate be? This is for month-to-month comparisons. You have the annualized turnover rate for the month. You can do it either way. You can do it in the annualized version or in the regular turnover rate for the month. For monitoring month to month, whether something is going up or down, and it'll allow you to see the seasonality of it. Okay? So now let's do something a little different. Month to month is okay, but usually we don't really have month to month benchmarks that we rely on. So we usually have yearly or quarterly benchmarks. Let's aggregate up to the next level so you can see how the calculations change over time. And let's call this chart turnover trends. Okay, so we zoom back out, and there's an analytics approach to turnover headcount. So we can say this is called the insert monthly average headcount. So the monthly average headcount basically takes what you started the month with and what you ended the month with and divides it by 2. It linearizes it, so it makes a line. So for here, it would be, I start my month with my end of month last one, which is 5,000. And let me make a parenthesis, 5,000. And then I end my month here with 15106. I'm going to divide that by 2. And that's going to tell me that my average monthly headcount was 553. Meaning we were about that, it assumes that we've had an even rate of growth across that month. And then we drag that one all the way down, and then we'll have a little bit of a problem for the first one because we don't know. But for the first one, let's just put 5,000. Let's say we had an even first month beginning to end. Okay, and these we're just gonna make sure that they're, so we have this monthly average headcount, we have the turnover headcount, and really the turnover rate for the month should be this number, this is 500 actually. It should be the monthly average headcount. We want to do this because we want to keep that definition. So we'll change this to here. And you will see nothing will change, but he had some numbers change slightly. I think this will make other calculations a lot easier because it's now taking the average numbers and you can average those averages as opposed to figuring out which month to exclude. So now what we'll do is we'll say this is the same as this annualized turnover rate for the month. There is another metric. So this is a little bit different, and this keeps more of a historical based on the year. So when you start off the year, you start off grabbing the data. So is it the first month annualized? Let's call it end of year turnover based on months. That'll explain it a little better. What if we ended the year? What is the turnover if we ended the year here? Let me fix this. What is the turnover if this month happened all year? It's a little bit of a different question. I'm going to wrap these just so we can kind of see them. And these are the questions that you kind of want to know what you want to ask or not. And this question is, how much of the workforce did we lose this month? What percentage of the workforce did we lose this month? The first one is how many employees were here at the end of the month. On average, were on the roster. On average, how many were here throughout the month? Okay, so these are the different types of questions that you are answering with these different metrics. Okay, so now we get to the question of what is the turnover if we ended the year? What is the turnover if we ended the year here? So for the first one, it doesn't matter because it's just January. You have 1 month of data. The end of the year here is just 1 month. But here, you're doing something a little different. You're going to take what's going to be your average head count of the 2 months, average head count of these 2 months, and then you're going to say, oh, actually, you're going to start with your counts. You're going to say, well, I have this much data for these. This is how much turned over these 2 months. And I can divide that by my average head count of my average months. This is how much on average I've had. Fix that one, that one. And we're going to say how much time. So we have about 4%, which is basically double, like 2.1 added together, which makes sense. But that's only 2 months of data. We need to say, what if this happened for a whole year? We know that there are 6 instances of 2 months in a year. So we have to multiply this by 6. Now you have your annualized. So you can see if this happened, if this ended now, it would be a little bit higher. We can drag this down to the end of the year till December. We'd have to adjust this 2 out of 12 because now this becomes 3. Instead of that, 2, I'll say count this to this, but I'm gonna fix the 3 so it doesn't move, and that should fix it. Let's try it. Yeah, there we go. You're doing the same thing over time. We know that here this is gonna be, I'm gonna grab the same calculation and just paste it here and show you that this is actually 11 here, the same number. So that only works for the year because we have to start over. The year has finished. So you end the year at 27.6. Here, we're gonna bring all these calculations for 2023, and we're gonna say here you actually want to change this to 15, and here we're gonna change all of these to 15. Same here. This 3 we're changing to 15. Is there anything that we didn't? What is this blue D13? Oh, that was the wrong number. This is D15. And we keep going down for another year. So all the way down to December. Again, do the same thing. We'll grab this first year here, put it over here. And instead of 15 here, we'll change it to 27. Everywhere you see a 15, change it to 27. Same here. And we're going to let this run down to December of the following year. Take this one, copy down here. We're going to say now 39. Change 27 to 39 here. And we're going to have this go all the way down. Great. We're going to grab all this data and ignore all these errors because it's just telling you there's inconsistency across adjacent cells. As you can see here, our annualized end of year turnover has been calculated, and I'm going to add it here by just dragging these on over. And I added another line. Let's look at what that line looks like. This annualized turnover based on months is giving you an updated expectation of what is going to happen at the end of what will be at the end of the year, right? So it's not as flat as this, but it's not as volatile as this. And that's because when you just focus on the month, you could have a crazy month and the month could skyrocket up or go down. So with the annualized end of year turnover, you're actually grounding the data. You're putting the months together so that you say, don't just consider this month, consider what's happened this year to give us an end of the year estimate, right? This number here, this, what is the turnover if we ended here today? This is a number that you should be using whenever you do any metric monitoring for performance. So if you tie performance of a manager to turnover, this is the one that you should be using. Because this one allows you to measure over time, what if the month ended today? What if the year ended today? And so that gives them a better expectation. Meaning, if they are at, let's go back to here. If it is November and they're at 27.6 and their goal for the year was 25%, it's going to be really hard to bring that number down with just 1 month's worth of data left. Let's see if we can try to do it by manipulating this. So if I'm a manager and I'm at 27.6 in November and I need to hit my 25% goal for my performance metric, let's change this 140 to what it's going to be. Let's change it to 10, just 10 people. So it gives the manager a better way to look at their performance over time according to the yearly goals. This is the metric you should use if you want to benchmark against a performance measure. Even if they have zero, if you have zero, it won't get below 25, it'll get to 25. If it's below 25%, they can't get it at all. It's done. So this is the numbers that you should use for monitoring manager performance over time. Okay, let's take a break.